Hey folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a much more tan.
And Psychic Tom has it with his crystal ball ready to go, as always, as ever.
Awesome. I hate to tell you, Tony, but Philly needs some money on Saturday.
What sport?
Hockey. Freaking overtime.
Did we win or lose?
You lost.
I'm sorry. I told him to win.
2-1 overtime. I think there was the one with the Bruins that was 7 seconds left, but I think it was in the overtime period too. Oh man, so that was a bad night. I missed like 4 or 5 huge parlays. That a decent one, not really a huge one, but came down to 2 people. Co-made it, Amanda Lemos. I ended up in the sentimental pick for her. She did really well in the first round, but then fell apart in the rest of the fight. Used her stand-up to her advantage because she kept getting taken down. And the guy was SY. And old Iwan Kutalaba, the Incredible Hulk, is his nickname. And it's off a crazy submission. Ended up winning that fight. He was an and so that he was the only one. One of them was a name pick parlay. I got 8 of them right. And the 9th one was, you know what they say in horseshoes and hand grenades.
Right.
Yep.
Sports were close.
Close doesn't help you. Only in horseshoes and hand grenades.
Right. So, hoping for better luck this weekend. We got a couple events. We got PFL and UFC going on. UFC is going to be early in the day, too. So, got to get this posted on our Spreaker feed as quickly as possible when it downloads. But yeah, there's lots of news to talk about as well. I was seeing a big trend, especially with upper boxing. It's kind of ironic. They do this big new promotion, and I think everybody under the umbrella would be happy that there's more money coming in, and everything's great. But I'm noticing this big trend in the UFC where people are starting to not be company people anymore. There used to be a lot of people that you just label right away. That's a company guy. He goes out there and he sings their praises. And Ronda Rousey actually kind of started attacking the UFC when she signed her deal with UFC. And by the way, that card just got even more stacked. We talked about Ngannou versus Means last week. Now we got Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz. And that is going to be crazy. I can't wait to see that. And these are all MMA fights. Gable Stevenson. After Dan Gable went to the Olympics for wrestling and then came out and did John Jones's Dirty Boxing. He was flirting with the UFC before he went into the wrestling, WWE wrestling tryouts, and didn't get a spot. I want to say he walked on to the Buffalo Bills too. I think I heard something like that. He tried to do football, didn't work out. So now he's doing MMA under Jake Paul, fighting Junior Dos Santos. Talk about that is going to be. And we also have a guy who was kicked out of the UFC, Makayev, AJ McKee. No strangers to the fight game. And that's just what we know so far. with Tina and the main event. It's a great show. And Jake Paul didn't necessarily want to compete with the UFC. He's doing these one-off events every now and then, maybe once a month. It's not like he's going to be up against the UFC every week, but he just did an interview with Donald Trump the other day, and Dana White was there in the building or something. And, I think they were doing UFC White House stuff. So it looked like they were talking and friendly and everything like that. Just Dana. Anyway, and said she's coming for Hunter Campbell's job, bigwig CEO, one of the executives. And she also said that the fighter's shit. Yes, the big story. How many people are complaining about being lowball? We're talking retired that are interested in coming back, and we're also talking established fighters of their careers started making really lowball offers, which is kind of funny considering they just gave Conor Ben $15 million for one fight, or they're scheduled to. But it's what the big surprise was this week was Joe Rogan came out in support of Ronda Rousey. And you talk about a company guy, Joe Rogan is hi. He's the announcement. So that was that's a big deal. So anyway, that's kind of been going around, and one of the guys that you'd consider a company guy is Colby Covington, and he really raised some controversy because he basically did him wrong. And he hasn't fought in a while, and he's
a long while.
Yeah, 14 months. He says they have me just sitting around for the last 14 months doing nothing, twiddling my thumbs. They haven't offered me one fucking fight. Like they're supposed to be offering me 3 fights a year by contractual law. So, I'm not trying to get into a pissing match, but it's just not fair to me. Giving me a chance to earn, you're not letting me earn anywhere else. So he also said that they prevented him from competing against Arman Sarukian in Real American Freestyle. So that kind of makes sense with that last quote. Covington ended up going up against Luke Rockhold. He tried to tempt George St. Pierre out of retirement. But anyway, we all know Sarukian got into a post-fight brawl at that event. So maybe it's best that they didn't. But yeah, they said no active UFC guys are allowed to compete against each other outside the UFC. So, little wrinkle of the independent contractor situation. But he's pissed. He says they're treating me unfairly. They done me dirty my whole career. They stole my interim title from me because I wouldn't turn on a 4 weeks notice. It would have been the biggest payday of my career, and they cost me that because I didn't want to turn around on 4 weeks notice when I had a nasal surgery planned and I just got a 5-round fight for a world title. Why would I turn around 4 weeks notice? So he says, I've tried to play the company role, but I'm just over it. It's just frustrating. And there's nothing we can do about it, even after everything I've done for them. So, and he kind of pointed out this happens to a lot of other fighters. Like if you turn down a fight, that's the other trend that's starting to surface. There's obviously very restrictive contracts with the UFC, but they seem to be very one-sided against the fighter because the UFC can somehow just not offer you a fight, even though you have fights left on your contract. They don't have any real obligation to offer you one, or 2 or 3. So that's why a lot of these people are sitting around, and Arman Sarukian is one of them. a lot of people expected him to get a title shot, but he turned down a fight or backed out of a fight at the last minute, and so that's the fight. So they have this kind of "we're not going to let you fight" type of punishment situation, and a lot of fighters are complaining about. That's what supposedly John Jones didn't get the fight on the White House, had nothing to do with arthritis. Of course, that's used to fight Tom Aspin. Unreal. So that's been going around, and Ronda actually, talk about wrestling, she just made a shocking return article to wrestling. It's AEW Revolution.
Oh, shit.
Which is really coming the eye of the UFC people. She didn't come back to WWE, which is under the banner. So yeah, she came out of the crowd and entered the ring wearing a Rowdy Roddy Piper jacket, and she and Storm had to be separated by security as the former AEW World Champion made it to the ring. 39 years old. Kind of hard to believe. But yeah, sure, it was a good show. I didn't get to watch it myself. And Jake Paul has come out, and the quote here from him saying that the UFC is dying. He said,
Well, Rich, I wouldn't go that far, but there is a word that's coming up, and I'll talk about this later on. Malaise. That's the word that cost Jimmy Carter his presidency, the national malaise. But there is something different. The feel. We'll talk about that more later. But dying, I wouldn't go to that extent, but you may have a good point.
So they're kind of at a bottleneck, and I think that's why we've seen fights that people aren't super excited about, and the biggest stars in the sport, like John Jones and Conor McGregor, fighting on a consistent basis. That's what made them so great in the beginning of their business, was just massive, amazing fights all the time. Now they're just not willing to spend money. And of course, there's this big White House event. It's all pretty much free. It's costing the UFC money. He like me, Jake Paul was disappointed by the card. And they're also just announcing today they're giving away free tickets for an outdoor viewing of this at some other venue, like a big park in DC. They're giving away 85,000 tickets. How big this park is, but
wow.
It's gonna be a madhouse of proper facilities. Anyway, so he says MMA is in a weird position right now, and it's the Wild West, and I believe we have a massive opportunity here to disrupt the whole space and to put fighters first, get them the pay that they deserve, the platform that they deserve, because I believe the UFC is dying and MVP is here to take over. Stealing the line from McGregor there. Anyway. So yeah, it's just been an interesting week. For just reading a lot about all this frustration that's surfacing. And then we have Terrence Crawford talking about knuckle boxing. Crawford actually likes it, it looks like. He says it's good for boxing. Anything that draws more eyes to the sport is good for it. They're putting on great competitive fights. Zuffa has had 4 events this year, all of them at the Meta Apex with their next show. It's going to be interesting to see if they ever bring it to a bigger venue. It seems kind of wasted on the Apex. But, they're just building it right.
You know what worries me about it, though? I mean, I've watched some of them, and, it looks like, as I said last time, it's a brand. The fighters wear black and white. It takes almost away some of the individuality of it. But, I worry about something like in UFC. You lose 2 fights in a row, you lose 3 fights in a row, you're out. Is it going to be where like, oh, you signed to Zuffa Boxing, and then it's like, you can't compete on say like a top rank card or a Golden Boy card or anything like that? Are you going to become like exclusive to this brand? And I just certain things that worry me because it's like, for years it was like one of my big things with the UFC is like, yeah, if you were signed to the UFC, you're right. There you would get the best fights. You would. But the problem is, like, if you weren't signed to that brand, you would never see that fight. You would never see those guys fighting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that. I do know that they've said outright that you can fight for other belts.
That's good.
At least tie, but that could have been an exclusive contract with him, whereas the rest of the other fighters might have signed to different deals. But it's a very interesting situation as far as comparing it to the UFC and seeing a contract like that for a particular fighter. And then in the UFC, these guys like we just mentioned, Colby Covington, can't even do a wrestling match against a fellow UFC fighter. Freestyle wrestling. So I know they do allow their guys to do grappling every now and then. It's just kind of a screwed up situation. And obviously, Dana White was trying to change the Muhammad Ali Act for a reason, because he wanted to exert more contractual control over some of his fighters there. And I don't think he's been able to do it yet. But yeah, boxing outside of Zuffa is doing all right, I guess, because DAZN just signed a deal with Top Rank Boxing, and we just talked about this a couple weeks ago. What could Zuffa do to take over? We could have bought Top Rank, but I don't think Bob Arum must still not be ready to sell it anymore. But he wanted to sell it before. I don't think he'd sell it to Dana White, though. I don't think he likes him very much. But it's going to be a new deal. I didn't even know DAZN is based in London. It's kind of weird. But yeah, deal is imminent. Prior contract with ESPN paid the promotion $85 million a year. So you can imagine that's probably going to be the benchmark that they'll have to exceed. Organization, but last week I think I talked about too. DAZN is linked through Prime now, so you don't have to have DAZN exclusively, I guess, anymore. You can watch it through.
Well, how does that work if you're not a subscriber to DAZN, but you're on Amazon Prime? You can see all DAZN. Is that how it works?
I don't know. I just noticed that it was optional to watch that. Now, I didn't notice if there was any kind of I didn't click on it. I didn't notice if there was any kind of like tag on it. Sometimes there's a tag, like you have to have an extra subscription. But who knows? Maybe Amazon just said, all right, we want this content and we're going to pay you to let us put it on our site. Or they're giving them, subscriber for it. But it looked like it was any other program, so I don't think it was restricted. And maybe it's just select combat sports things, because after they made the UFC deal, they want to kind of corner that market for all the promotions. UFC and the something. And another funny story going around, an MMA fighter fell out of the cage before the fight, and then he got knocked out in the first round of the fight. Oregon Ducks football linebacker turned mixed martial arts fighter, A.J. Hotchkins, Was out in Vegas at Tough Enough, a venue. Well, maybe not the venue. Maybe it was the venue. I don't know. I don't know if I've gone to that exact venue, but I went to a couple of those events when I was living out in Vegas, same promotion. And this guy was having his fourth professional fight in the Palms Casino Resort in Vegas, and he tried to do a cartwheel after he got into the cage, and he cartwheeled right out of the open gate on the other side. Almost hurt himself. So then, somebody caught him. He got right back up, laughed it off, and then went out there and got the heck out. So, yeah. Hopefully he has better luck next time. I do remember another UFC fighter in the celebration after the fight, he busted his elbow a couple years ago. I know we talked about that.
Johnny Walker, wasn't it?
Got to do one of them soccer things where you just fall over on your back. And didn't work out for him. He dislocated his elbow. I wonder if that was covered under the insurance. Talked about Dana White issuing 85,000 tickets for this event. It's going to be in the Ellipse, it's called. 85,000 people. And I doubt they'll get that many, but even if it comes close, that is just going to be logistically crazy. How they're going to afford it. I do know how they can afford it. It's going to cost them a lot of money. UFC has cut 5 fighters in their latest roster purge. Other thing we're seeing too is they're having very low toleration for guys that aren't giving them the best results. Chris Matino, understandable. Phil Rowe, Gavin Tucker, Eric Silva, and AJ Cunningham to be thrown out. All right, so let's go to our boxing results. And let's start. It's giving us the schedule in the results page. What's wrong with boxing?
Boxing, well.
Okay, over in Japan on yesterday, Shu Utsuki won a unanimous decision, improved to 18-1 against Cristiano Iokwi, fell to 19-13-2, and Utsuki won the WBO Asia Pacific lightweight title there. Okay, that's a bunch of amateur stuff. WBO World Flyweight title went to Anthony Olasquaga. Moves to 12-1 with a KO over Jukia Imura, also in Japan on Sunday, though. Imura falls to 9-2 and lost the belt. We had a technical decision, must have been a cut for the WBC World Light Flyweight title. Tham Naim Trong lost his second fight instead of winning his 30th. 29-2 now, losing to Shokichi Iwata. He's 15-2 going into 16 title. Not too shabby there. Then we had the IBO World Super Bantamweight title was vacant. Looks like a Scandinavian country. Laura Gerzib came in at 11-0, won a unanimous decision to move to 12-0 against Seema Kelly Tunsheni. Came in at 8. So that was a female. That's sweet. Red and white flag. And then James Dickens did not have a good day in Dublin. 36-6 now, lost unanimous decision to Anthony Casase. 24-1 going. Now he's going to be there. No title on the line there, but there was in the other two fights on this card worth mentioning. Pierce O'Leary stayed undefeated, 19-0 now, beating Maxie Hughes, who is 29-9-2. And then we had Jono Carroll, 25-3-1, winning, 26-3-1, winning a split decision over Colm Murphy, who is no longer undefeated, has a 16-1 record now. That was for the IBO World Super Featherweight Championship, which was vacant going in. And we had another fight in Mexico for a big title, WBC Silver Flyweight title. Diana Laura Fernandez improved to 37-4-1, beating Tenkai Tsunami, 33-16-1 now at flyweight. Ooh, the Spanish welterweight title. Saturday. And to Ethan Jimenez. Some of those got to go. Fighters going at each other. Jimenez won. Urbina fell to 6-1. Juan Jose Urbina. Jimenez came away with the Spanish welterweight title. Amateurs. And then the big one was out in Anaheim, California. Arnold Barboza Jr. improving to 33-1. He was the more experienced fighter going in. Beat Kenneth Sims Jr., who fell to 22-4-1. That was for the WBO Global welterweight title, not to be confused with the world title. I don't know. WBO has a world title too, but that must be confusing when they have the global and the world welterweight title in the same banner. Gabriela Fundora, she was on that parlay actually that I made for that ended up losing because of the Flyers. I had her winning by TKO too. She won in the 6th round over Viviana Ruiz Corredor, falls to 10-3. Fundora is now 18-0, keeps all her titles, IBF, WBC. Oh, and we got 6 now. 9. We go all the way back to Friday. Got some amateur stuff. I think we had a busy Friday last week. Get to watch any boxing down there in Florida, or you're just focused on baseball?
The TV in my room never went on. The only thing that I watched on TV was the U.S. Dominican game and then the U.S. Venezuela game. Neither of them were watched with sober eyes.
Yeah. I think the Venezuela game, Venezuela winning that, and basically a little bit that night. Anyway, Kissimmee, Florida. While you were down there, we had the WBO Latino light heavyweight title going to Najee Lopez, stayed undefeated at 16-0 now, winning by TKO. Manuel Gallegos, he falls to 22-4-1.
Did we get muted? I can't hear anything.
I can't either. I just heard you. Yeah,
Mhm.
it almost. But I can't hear anything from Rich.
Yeah, he was saying something, and I heard the one fight, and it was like I lost him. Thomas,
It's almost like I'm hearing a keyboard punch or something.
Well, if you hear just a random click every minute, that's me looking at photos.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess we can talk about your trip. How'd it go?
It went well. It was the reboot I needed, and ironically, I got home yesterday, and I was watching the movie Major League, the first one, and we did a scene verbatim from that movie like 10 years ago. One of the first times we ever had our whole crew together, and it was the too high. What the hell does that mean, too high? I mean too high, I mean too hard. And it's like, who gives a shit? It's gone. So I get home, I'm watching Major League, and I was thinking about Major League 2, which was an inferior sequel, but it was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. And in the whole movie, Charlie Sheen's character was trying to become like not himself. Well, is that Rich back?
Hey, there we
Hey, there
are.
he is.
Right. Wi-Fi malfunction there.
Hey, Wi-Fi.
What that was all about.
I was telling Tom I'm looking at my pictures from vacation, and that was a disaster. But we'll get to that after we do all our real stuff.
Trying to actually set the box. It's giving me an error. And all of a sudden, I realized, because there's no Wi-Fi. Glitch. Okay, schedule. So, tomorrow we got Nina Meinke, 20-3, facing Diana Vargas at featherweight, and IBF World Featherweight title and IBO World Featherweight title on the line in that bout. Big fight on the full card. We got Michael Conlon fighting Kevin Walsh in Belfast for the WBC International Featherweight title. Here's one. Kieran Malloy also on that card, 13-0, facing Xavier Colin, who's 15-2-1. That's for the IBF European welterweight title, which is vacant. And something Friday in the U.S. Not sure exactly where. Marco Romero, 12-0, facing William Langston, 14-5-1 at super middleweight. Zone, speaking of. George Ladard fighting over across the pond. He is 13-0, fighting Tyler Denny, who's 21-3-3. And that's for the BBBFC British middleweight title, the Commonwealth Boxing Council middleweight title, and the IBF Intercontinental middleweight title. We also have Jose Luis Vasquez Hernandez looking for win number 20. He's 19-1, facing Manuel James, 16-3-1 at super lightweight. Jamestown. That is. Might want to list the state there, Foxrec. WBC Interim World Super Middleweight title going on in San Bernardino, which I'm thinking is California. That's Lester Martinez, also got 19 wins, 19-0-1, facing Emmanuel Aline, 22-3-3. Also on that card, Kudratillo Abdulkakarov, 22-5 at super welterweight, facing Joshua Kevin Anton, who's 12-0. Another one on the zone in Orlando on Saturday, Carlos Adams, 24-1-1, facing Austin Williams, who's 20-1, WBC World Middleweight title. And this sounds like a better name for a shooter boxer, Corey Marksmith. 12-1. Wait. Facing Jacob with a Y, Jaycob, Jacob Gomez, 14-0-1. Somebody's always got to go there. Title. Japanese titles in Japan, Tuesday. Not a big week. I don't see any kind of Zuffa cards. So we got the next one here. Do we have a tornado warning? So I don't hold it to the end of the show.
I do. This is a pretty significant tornado warning. So, a person that we've discussed on the road before many times. We got a news report today that 86-year-old Chuck Norris was hospitalized down in Florida. And the reports have got to be wrong. You mean the hospital got admitted to Chuck Norris? I don't know if Chuck Norris went in for surgery, but he probably went in there, did it himself, and sent the bill to the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know how, and, you know, in all seriously, you hope it's not serious. They said he's in good spirits. But, you know, the Grim Reaper, he would show up and he would be like, nope, get me out of here. You know, I ain't doing it. No. The Grim Reaper, he is Chuck Norris. But I saw it today, I'm like, I literally wrote it down. If you see my paper right here, I'm like, tornado warning, Chuck Norris. But I was like, yeah. You know, Chuck, I mean, he's down there and it's like, you know, he built the hospital that he was born in.
Really?
Yeah, he built the hospital he was born in.
What are you reading out of Chuck Norris joke book?
I love those. Those like, so I saw it today when his hospital, and then people were commenting on it, and those are some of the ones I stole. Like, he did the surgery himself and sent the hospital the bill. You know, the hospital got admitted to Chuck Norris. Those are all the different ones I was reading today, and I'm like, yeah, these are great. Got to include some of these. You know, I do my tornado warning tonight. But yeah, I thought that would be, you know, a little levity. But we hope the guy's okay, because, you know, he is a good ambassador and he's a good guy and he's an action figure, and it's like those jokes are timeless.
Right. Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups. He pushes the world down.
That's right. How many push-ups can Chuck Norris do? All of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's a big mixed martial artist himself, so I always loved his Total Gym too. I had one. Anyway, big news in mixed martial arts before we get to the psychic vision. Still got Tom with us, right, Tom?
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about a very special event. I'm sure you guys are itching to see it, but it's a new phenomenon, I guess you want to call it. To that, it's a spectacle of all spectacles, making MMA history here. We have the first ever world title MMA fight between two transgender fighters. You guys excited?
Dear Lord.
Oh, it's not the UFC BMF title or anything like it, but it's a small MMA promotion attempt to, I guess, generate some buzz. The funny thing is, these two girl boys have actually fought before, twice in Muay Thai, which makes it a rivalry.
Now, were they men when they did that, or women?
I don't know. It's very confusing. This article just absolutely confused the shit out of me when it explained their gender situation. Of course, you got to call them they, right? We know that, at least that But it will be, let's see, where it talks about that. At the very end. It's the third time they're going to fight each other. Okay, here it is. So, Brady, one of the women, was assigned female at birth, and Figueroa transitioned from male to female. So I don't know if that means Brady's in transition. That's what makes her transgender. But she was assigned female at birth. She's fighting another technically female, and they're calling it the Femme title, Femme.
God. Assigned at birth. What an idiotic saying.
Yeah.
Assigned at birth.
Like you get like a homeroom class. You were assigned to this class.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a boss of genders. Anyway, it's called Critical Combat. It's going to be June 20th, 2026, in case you want to be there in Middleton, New Jersey. It's actually in the co-main event. It's not even the main event. And it's, get a load of this one. Summer Brady and Gita Figueroa. Summer Brady. I guess that's his trans name. Anyway, I'm going to be looking to be the undisputed Critical Combat Femme champion at super lightweight. So, we do have other historical fights that have happened with transgender fighters. Probably the most famous one that came out was one of the first, Fallon Fox, years ago. All these them people usually have some weird names. Fallon Fox. Big spectacle. Anyway, what do we have for our psychic vision before we get to the MMA stuff?
Well, the question is that the fan base has been let down in MMA a bit. And we've had cycles. I mean, nothing can be good all the time. But I'm trying to figure out, is this just a down cycle or is something changed? And something with Paramount that I'll share with you guys. But the question, so I guess the basic question, is there something wrong here? And because there's kind of a sense of that word malaise with the fan base. And maybe a lot of it is with the big fights that have just been such letdowns. Because we all know what the feel is for the big fight feel. There's a special, we're really looking forward to it. And it's just been one letdown after the next. And there's maybe some exhaustion. And I remember when the UFC got on Fox, now that was a big thing. And then when they went to ESPN, that was an even bigger thing because that was supposed to really open the door for other stuff. But I'm not feeling that buzz that they're on Paramount. And I was wondering, sometimes maybe if it's free, people don't value it as much. I mean, again, it's just kind of a weird place we're in now. And I did a little more digging about Paramount. And there's an executive there, Mark Shapiro. And he's pretty big in all this stuff. Now, I guess this guy he used to work for Dan Snyder, who was the former owner of the Washington Redskins before he was canceled. Mm-hmm. And Snyder had something to do with Six Flags. Now, again, I know this very superficially, but supposedly Shapiro was a pretty good businessman. And he didn't really solve the debt problem of Six Flags, but he did a lot of good stuff. But here's my point there. He's not a fight guy. Now, he could go to a lot of fights for years, and I don't think he'd ever be one. Now, the definition of a fight guy, I would mortgage my home that if the three of us, God forbid, could never watch another fight the rest of our lives, we would still be fight guys. That makes sense? So where I'm going with that now, because if Paramount gets into this private equity mindset, what about the grassroots of the fans? Is it going to be a Moneyball situation? So there's just because I remember the early days when the fans would get what they wanted. They listened to us back then. And on the underground, I mean, it was so busy there. The fighters were there. Dana was there I mean, we could just talk to him. And now, are these money guys here going to be listening to us like they did? Now, I think that the jury's still out on everything, and this is awful new. But I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of that feeling that there's a part of MMA that something's missing now. It seems, like the big fights and the fans. You can kind of pick up on it, and because it's just, I know we can't get back to the excitement of the old days, but we'll have to see where it goes. And so I guess the open-ended question is: this just a down cycle that things will get better? But I mean, look at how we were looking forward to the White House card, and look at it. I mean, maybe there'll be some good fights there, but is this really what we want? And I mean, as boxing fans, we've been through this stuff for decades. We want what we want, but we don't get it too often.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I think the UFC thought it was too big to fail, and it's not really failing. It's obviously succeeding. But I saw an interesting comment. It seems like Joe Rogan is really throwing Dana under the bus lately. I saw an article about him talking about Dana White taking all his gambling money from Power Slap, or to create Power Slap, something along those lines. And it kind of made sense. And then I did read a couple months ago that Power Slap went bankrupt.
So there's no more of it?
No, they're still moving forward, but they had to declare bankruptcy to get rid of some debt. So Dana White had to pull a Fertitta move, which is kind of funny because the Fertittas are like known for their bankruptcy ploy that they did with Zions first, and then that was like the trial balloon to go and do their casino chain, their entire casino chain. They bankrupted, and they did a bunch of things where they brought it public and then they made it private, and they just screwed a lot of people over the years with these financial deals. And that's unfortunately how they made a lot of their money. But yeah, Dana White had to bankrupt the whole thing, or the parent company, and then keep it going after the debt was gone. So I don't know how they finagled that, but Joe Rogan's theory is that Power Slap was the product of that, and he's spending a lot of money on his gambling addiction with the cards. Poker, I think, is his thing.
Well, maybe Joe just feels I don't really need this anymore. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. It's funny you mentioned that, because back in the day when the Zions thing was going on, I was talking to somebody who was very close with the founder of Zions, who was really good friends with Dana White. His wife was even better friends with Dana White. I don't know if they actually had an affair or anything, but Jennifer Pike, the wife of Russell Pike, who used to run Zions, supposedly, I heard from one source, went on a friggin' shopping spree all over the friggin' country, even out to Hawaii with Dana. And they bought a shit ton of clothes for Zions clothing, places, and brought it back. This is one of the stories I heard. So they're very close. And you can see they're in the same year. I got their yearbook pictures back then from somebody who still lived in Vegas as a lawyer out there. So it was just kind of crazy how it all developed. And one day I had this source tell me Joe Rogan gave his 2 weeks notice today, right? And I don't know if you guys ever heard the story or not, but I had the chance that I could have met Joe Rogan because of Joey Karate. Remember Joey Karate?
Yeah, of course I remember Joey Karate.
Joey Karate. I should have fucking kept that up because little did I know he ended up being Joe Rogan's sidekick at a comedy show that we went to in Boston. And if I had still been keeping in touch with Joey Karate and I had known that, I could have called him and I probably would have gone backstage. And this was after this incident happened, so it would have been really funny. But this was back when we had just started as Fight News Unlimited. And I heard this rumor from this guy that Joe Rogan had just gone out and complimented Mark Cuban about his HDNet fights. So Dana White called him and just ripped into him. And this witness was supposedly in the room when it happened. And Joe Rogan supposedly gave his 2 weeks notice. He was quitting the UFC announcing job over it because Dana White was butthurt that he gave HDNet fights, the competition, a compliment. So I write this little article, that obviously is after I got sued. So I made sure it was speculative and not guaranteed that this happened. I heard this from a source, and it got like 84,000 visits in one day. And it started to get picked up across the media. And I had created a monster. So then, lo and behold, Joe Rogan puts his own blog out. This is way before he had the podcast. He had to put his own blog out saying that the rumors are not true. So I believe that confrontation happened.
Yeah.
Maybe it just exaggerated that Joe Rogan gave it to. But I think that they definitely had that confrontation over the phone. But it would have been really funny to have actually met Joe Rogan, talked about that story. I'm sure he would have remembered it.
Yeah, and with him talking the way he's talking, maybe he just says, "Hey, I'm too big to worry about it."
Yeah, now different position. Because now he could care less about whatever money he's making for that job because he's got the podcast. I mean, he's got people literally begging to be on his podcast. A lot of fighters want to be on his podcast. It's just instant celebrity situation, I guess.
Well, I mean, more than just fighters. I mean, he goes to. I haven't listened to him in a while, but he used to have all kinds of people into longevity, politics. I mean, just a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah, so now he can pretty much say whatever he wants and doesn't have to worry about repercussions. I think the fans would revolt too. He's always said he's only going to leave when Dana White's done. So I think they would hold him to that promise and be pissed off if he ever left. But yeah, now he's being very critical of the whole situation. And I don't necessarily think it's like going to financially destroy the UFC. That, a lot of these people are starting to pick apart what's going on there. They're known for being ruthless. They're going to be ruthless. They're going to be doing boss moves everywhere. And the classic fighter pay thing will never disappear. That's the one thing that's going to be a monkey on their backs forever, because they're never going to be able to appease the public with the amount that they pay these UFC fighters. I mean, it's just almost criminal the way that they've set it up, so that, like, beginning in MMA, the reason why MMA was so good is because these guys didn't have to fight for money. They were just that passionate about it. They had to do it. It was all about proving that they were better than the other guy with their mix of styles.
Yeah, it was $1,000 to show, I guess, or something like yeah. Even the winner of 3 fights in a night would get 50,000. So it's not about the money.
Yeah, and Chuck Liddell was able to get that $1 million sponsorship from Zions, and that's really what put them on the map and really established him as like an independent-minded fighter, and it helped Dana White too, because Dana White was the one that hooked Zions up with the whole sponsorship in the first place, and he knew Chuck Liddell personally from representing him even before Dana White convinced the Fertittas to buy the UFC. But it's always been the thing, and then I always go back to that ESPN interview that Lorenzo did, and he gave the percentage of revenue that goes to the fighters, and I think at the time it was like 17%, something crazy like that. And compared to all the other professional sports, it's a pittance. So until they really step up and do something with this Paramount money that shows that they want to invest in the fighters as well, it's always going to be something I think is going to sow discontent. I think a lot of fighters are going to leave at the end of their contracts because there are other places to go now. And it's kind of funny that Dana White tried to create a monopoly to avoid this with the Fertittas, and then with the corporate entity once it got bought out. But now it's so splintered into these different areas, man. You've got bare knuckle, you've got some of these fighters crossing over to regular boxing, you've got the PFL is not going anywhere anytime soon. They're backed by Saudi money. You got
Jake Paul. And Jake Paul.
Now you got Jake Paul. And I think the only thing that's going to save them is this Dana White Contender Series and the Ultimate Fighter programs that is really their minor leagues,
But they're not on. They're not going to be on Paramount, are they?
The Dana White Contender Series? Oh yeah.
Oh, that'll be on Paramount.
Yeah, I'm sure. And also the Ultimate Fighter, I'm sure they're going to do that. Unless they have different networks for that, but I doubt it's going to be like on some other premium network.
Well, I guess the Ultimate Fighter started on Spike, going back to those days, and then it went over to Fox, and then it seemed to. I don't remember him having it on a whole lot on ESPN.
Bought the rights to the video. That's a funny story, by the way. If you ever look up, there's a podcast with like all the famous podcasters, and they're all in a big ring and they're talking to Dana White. It's one of the most fascinating interviews with him I've ever seen. And he goes back to all the old story about how they bought the UFC and how they didn't even know what they had. And all these fights were on VHS tapes in a room, like every single fight. And that's what we ended up seeing on all those classic fights on Spike TV before the Ultimate Fighter started. And then the Ultimate Fighter started, and Zions had commercials on it. So that show kind of put them on the map too. Kind of funny how that worked out. Anyway, last week we had another UFC event, Emmett versus Vallejos. I pretty much nailed the main event. Had a real good feeling, and Kevin Vallejos, he's just been so savage. He's just unbelievable striker, and just so quick and devastating. And Josh Emmett, it makes me always wonder when I see these bald fighters trying to be striker. It's like you cannot put enough Vaseline on a bald head to avoid getting cut. And Josh Emmett seems to get cut in every fight, right on the top of his head. This one was no exception. It was very quick, 3 minutes and 33 seconds in. TKO win for Kevin Vallejos. That one was one of the easiest fights to predict. Jillian Robertson and Amanda Lemos. I think I only had Jillian winning on one parlay, and the rest of them didn't pay out. But Amanda Lemos, I mean, I saw her in Boston. I saw her try 18,000 submissions on Wiley Zhang. Or I think it was her, who was the former champion at the time. She didn't get the belt yet. But Amanda couldn't quite get the win, but she was so scrappy. And so every time she fights, I root for her, but I realize now it's more sentimental than fundamental. And I should have known Jillian, as the favorite, would have done what she did and dominated the last 2 rounds. And she would not be able to submit her, because that's another mistake I made, is put a submission for her, and not going to do that to a Brazilian. It's not going to happen. Jose Delgado did what he was supposed to do, beating Andre Fili by split decision. That was a huge surprise to me. Huge surprise. And I tell you, that fight was so one-sided towards Fili that at the end of the fight, if you put a bet down on Delgado to win, I think the odds were like plus 3,000 or something like that. Something ridiculous. Because, as the bookies were watching the fight, they thought it would have no chance to go to Delgado. But it did, split decision. And I was kind of surprised. It actually helped me, going into the last 2 fights, because I had a couple fights that relied on Amanda Lemos that lost everything. And all the rest of them got canceled, basically, because I lumped them all together. But Amanda Lemos had a great first round. Just couldn't finish the fight on the feet, just couldn't really do it. And then she had a real problem with the grappling. She's good with trying to do the guillotine. She got her own little guillotine choke. She didn't even get the chance to try it this fight. But yeah, beyond that, she's, I guess, not that great on the ground, according to this fight, at least. Then we had a wild one. I don't know if you saw this card, Tom, but it's one of the craziest fights I've ever seen.
Yeah, I missed it.
Marwan Rahiki, a new fighter from the Contender Series. Pretty much, I think, 1 fight removed from it. He fought this guy, Harry Hardwick, from the UK. And I actually was thinking, geez, I got to change my bet from Rahiki to Hardwick after they showed his speech. Hardwick gave this big speech about how he learned from his last loss and he was coming back with a vengeance and new and improved. And Marwan Rahiki and him went to battle. They beat the ever-living shit out of each other. And it turned out sometime in the second round, Rahiki, who just kept, fighting very recklessly, but also scoring more consistently. And he's one of those fighters that will keep his hands low when he shouldn't, but he compensates by doing a lot of body and head movement. And I think that actually assists with his power and his ability to do damage and knock people out. But Harry Hardwick had a head full of cement, and he would not go down. He got hit with so many punches that would have just obliterated lesser fighters. And, he is improved, but just not enough for beating Rahiki, because at the end of the second round, he went back to his corner and told him his jaw was broken. So they had to stop the fight. But it was kind of funny because one of the announcers picked up on that he was like had his mouth open in a funny situation that didn't look right. But yeah, so Rahiki won by TKO. That was a very close fight up until that point, though, because Harry was given as hard as he was taken for a little while, and just the fact that he would not go down, it seemed to kind of tire Rahiki. And he might have faded if it went to a third round, but it was unreal. And then we had a guillotine choke win for Iwan Kutalaba, the Incredible Hulk, another one that was a parlay destroyer for me. Umar Sy, good favorite going in. got choked out 4 minutes and 24 seconds into the first round. And then before that, we had Charles Johnson beating Bruno Silva. And I was really high on Bruno Silva as an underdog. We had a bunch of parlays with him in it as well. And not that it would have paid off with the rest of the results. He lost by split decision, and I really think he got robbed. I think he had way better technical rounds in the second and third, and Charles Johnson barely won the first, if you could even say that he won the first. I think Silva landed the better shot, but he didn't give it to him. Split decision went to Johnson. And one of them, I believe one of the scores, the other judges have it 29-28, and one judge has it 30-27. You have to wonder, like, what kind of different angle did this other guy see that gives a whole new round to the dude who won? I don't know. And Murtabek Oralby beating Chris Curtis. That was pretty much expected, but it was kind of a boring fight. It was a lot of, as Tom would call it, wrestle fucking. Chris Curtis was none too happy. He kept getting taken down and struggled to get back up, and he wanted to on the feet brawl, but Oralby made it a wrestling clinic, and that was ugly. Decision win for Oralby pretty handily. And then crazy fight. Vitor Petrino and Stephen Asplund. Stephen Asplund kind of roared onto the scene on the Contender Series. He was a guy that had the stomach stapling situation. Lost a lot of weight, and I don't know if he actually had the surgery, but he was like over 300 pounds or something, and he lost a ton of weight and made it onto the Contender Series, won his first fight against kind of a journeyman, and now he goes up against Vitor Petrino. Should have easily handled him, but Asplund is just very durable. He's not going down. And he got tagged up pretty good in this fight. And he was just a little bit more targeted himself because he's very reckless. He's very wild swinging. But as a pure boxer, he has the power if he hits you. But his boxing was just so sloppy this fight. And Petrino did just enough to win each round and scored just enough punishment on Asplund. Bloodied him up, and Asplund's cardio just was nowhere in the later part of the fight, last part of the second round and whole third round. So Petrino kind of took over from there, but yeah, Asplund, I thought could do better than that with a little bit more crisper punching and punching his feet better and not chasing Petrino or cage so much or chasing him more, because one thing I really got pissed off about, this guy wants to win this fight, he's constantly backing out of exchanges even before they happen, and like resetting and waiting. It's like it's literally stalling, and I didn't like that part about how that fight went down, because I really thought he was going to win. I had setups on both sides of it, but still disappointing. Elijah Smith, before that, Gilbert Smith's son, second generation UFC fighter, did what he does, but he got a rear naked choke instead of a knockout, which I was expecting, over Su Young Yu. So you lost. You didn't know you lost this week. Manuel Souza at lightweight, beating Balaji Oki by first round knockout, 4 minutes and 12 seconds into that one. And then Eric Anders and Brad Tavares was really interesting. Unanimous decision win for Anders, who was the underdog going in. A lot of people expected Tavares. But, it was actually pretty wrestling heavy. And Anders was a little bit quicker with the striking as well. So that was an interesting fight to watch. And then Beatrice Mesquita, Bia Mesquita for short, beating Montserrat Rondon. who I noticed they shortened her name to Montse. They got rid of the rat. Put her name on TV. I don't know what that was all about. Maybe she didn't like all the rat jokes. Yeah. But she lost by submission in the very first round, 2 minutes and 7 seconds in. That was kind of expected. For that, Hector Sosa, not Sousa, beating Juan Lacerda by unanimous decision. And then the first fight of the night, Pierre Rodriguez beat Sam Hughes by unanimous decision. So now we have a PFL card going down on the 20th this week. Today, the 19th, that's tomorrow. I don't know what the time difference is because it's going to be in Spain. I don't have the time with the start right in front of me, but we got Costello Van Steenis in the main event facing Fabian Edwards. This is actually a rematch. The first one, but Van Steenis just had one of the craziest fights I've ever seen, where he got the submission at the very last second against Johnny Eblen, who's a phenomenal wrestler. And it was very unexpected, but I loved every second of it. It was one of the best PFL fights I think I've ever seen. Probably one of the best MMA fights I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. But yeah, 17-3 is his record. Fabian Edwards, 16-4. He's the brother of the other Edwards in the UFC from the UK. So a little bit heavier though. It's going to be an interesting fight to watch. We also have Adam Borix in a co-main event here. He's 20-3, fighting AJ McKee, who is 23-2. Franco Tenaglia, 5-2, facing Yassine Najid, 9-6. Jacinta Austin, 8-2 at strawweight, facing Benita Van Rouge, who's 7-1. That's a female fight. Linton Bassell, 25-10 at heavyweight, fighting Jose Augusto, who's 11-5. Luciano Pereira, 15-1, facing Kevin Cordero, who's 15-5. It's at bantamweight. We got Borja Garcia Jerez, 6-2 at flyweight, facing Rafael Calderon, 6-2. Gino Van Steenis, probably related to Costello, 7-2 at lightweight, facing Mark Ewan, who's also 7-2. And Mattia Giordano, 4-2, facing Ernesto Schizzano, 5-1. David Mora in the second fight of the night, 10-6, facing Claudio Placella, 6-3. And a Nacho. Got a Nacho fight of the night. Nacho Campos, 6-2 at featherweight, leading off the card against Matisse Berggren, who is 4-2. Now, we got Evloev versus Murphy. And this is from London, England. So it starts around 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Mavzar Evloev undefeated, Lerone Murphy undefeated, although he does have one draw. And most of the experts are picking Evloev in this one. He is 71% of the UFC prediction channels are picking him just to win the fight. Most of them think it'll be a decision win. That's kind of what my thinking was before I even looked at any of the videos. Is that both guys are undefeated. Both guys have their own capabilities. But Evloev is a phenomenal grappler, wrestler. And Lerone Murphy just knocks people out like crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see how that clashes. If Murphy can figure out a way to defend the takedowns and get his striking game together, it should be his fight. But I just don't see this one ending early. I feel like it's an over bet, over 4.5 rounds, or a decision, plain decision, and you don't even pick either guys. But if you can pick a side and go with Evloev or go with the experts, 71% of them, and just do Evloev on the money line. It's not even worth picking the decision method of victory at all. And then we have a weird co-main event. You know, these guys don't have crazy good records. They don't have name recognition, but they're co-main eventing this card here, which is a numbered UFC event. It's kind of weird, but I guess maybe because it's overseas, you know, they don't have a lot of superstars that want to travel. Luke Riley, 12-0 against Michael Aswell, who is 11-3. This, don't get me wrong, this would probably be a good fight. But 92% of the people got Riley. He's another Contender Series alumni. Knockout or decision, I think, is the best way to go with him. And yeah, Aswell does have 3 losses, and Riley's undefeated, so that kind of makes sense. And then we got Michael Venom Page. Big, tall guy, used to be automatic, used to knock everybody out, and then some guy did the wrestling thing on him one time, and other guy slugged it out with him another time, and he picked up those 2 losses. And he got 1 loss in the UFC. A really tough guy. And it's up to the Sam Patterson test. I think is going to be a problem for Michael Page. It kind of seems like a tune-up fight for him. But Sam Patterson does come in with a decent record, 14-2-1. I just think Page has a lot more experience, and you know, he's kind of more of a tactical fighter these days. He doesn't really go all out for the knockout as much. He's grown smarter with his techniques over the years. But yeah, then
Plus, he's probably slowed down a little bit too, you know, because his style was just based on that blinding speed.
Right. And an up jab, a lot of head movement, and just crazy spin stuff. Like he's always very dynamic. But I like it in this one. I don't have the percentages in front of me, but the at Prediction Tracker is the tag on the YouTube. I think that's the best video because it collects all the Prediction Channel results. And it wasn't helpful last week, I'll tell you that, because it got some things wrong. But I think overall, you know how to use that information. It's a very good indicator of how the fights are going to go down. But anyway, Iwo Baranowski before that in a light heavyweight fight against Austin Lane, who is coming down from heavyweight, and he's lost 4 out of his last 5 fights. He's been knocked out a couple times, and Iwo Baranowski stormed onto the Contender Series and then knocked out his first UFC opponent. And he famously knocked out Muhammad Ali. Remember talking about that on the Contender Series? Fighter, different spelling, but
Yeah,
I remember that.
So Iwo, oh my God. I mean, he should be studied the way he knocks people out. It's a very young fighter, very new to the game, but he came out of nowhere and he came onto that Contender Series. I think it was a 16-second knockout. It was vicious. And I kind of researched him beforehand, and I knew. So I think he did win me some money on that Contender Series card. But if he's facing Austin Lane, who doesn't have the best chin, and nobody's giving Austin Lane a chance, Baranowski has unbelievable odds. Everybody is literally like 100% of the people who predicted he'll win on YouTube went with knockout. So I think that's pretty safe choice this week. But if you really want to knock out either guy, because Austin Lane, I just think Baranowski is just so technically powerful and just very well suited for the knockout. Kind of reminds me a little of Dolph Lundgren in Rocky 5 and 4. Anyway, Roman Dolidze fighting Christian Leroy Duncan. Another fight that people think are going to be one-sided. Dolidze, he's a really good overall fighter, but he just kind of has more of like that 1-2 punching style and maybe throw a hook in here and there. He doesn't really do many dynamic things. He doesn't really throw good elbows or knees. He's like one of them old school bare knuckle boxers. Just go out there for 90 rounds and slug with you. A lot of people got Christian Leroy Duncan. I think a safer option for this one would be by decision if you're going to go back. And he does have knockout power. I just think Lindsay is tough to put down. So I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. But really want to hedge a TKO or decision as an option for most. Curtis Campbell 8-0, Silva 10-2, by the way. And I don't really see any other option here. Go with the undefeated guy, Curtis Campbell, 8-0, and the predictors have taking that fight. No money line. Probably do it. Yeah, now we go to Mason Jones and Axel Sola, another up and coming contender there. Sola just has a surprising knockout power for lightweight, facing Mason Jones, who's really got way more experience. 17-2 to 11-0-1 for Sola. But surprisingly, Jones on the money line, despite Sola's youth and talent, is what the predictors are going after. With Sola, if you're going to hedge something, this would be the fight to hedge. Sola by knockout is attractive. I think it's got good odds. Maybe on the money line or decision, or plus 2.5, over 2.5 rounds. How do I feel about that one? And then we got a guy from the UK, Nathaniel Wood. He's 22-6, fighting Losine Kaita, another brand new guy, 16-1, making his UFC debut here. But the bookies got him at negative odds to Nathaniel Wood, who's won almost all of his fights by decision. He's 22-6, facing the new guy, but everybody loves the new guy, and they expect him to win. So this one, money line or KO if you're going on the Kaita side, and then decision for Wood. Well, money line, obviously, because that could be anything. But yeah, I think Wood has the better chance on this one. Definitely kind of concerning that Kaita is the favorite. You always wonder with a young, talented guy like that if that's for a reason. He's going to be like, the new Muhammad Ali of MMA or what? The next couple are much easier to go. I think they're pretty much guaranteed. I mean, it might come back to bite me for saying that, but 6th fight of the night, Mario Pinto, 11-0, facing Felipe Franco, 10-1. Felipe lost to that Frankie guy. I think I played the clip on the show of the audio from when Frankie was fighting in the Contender Series, and he was a gym teacher. He had to get people to cover his gym class to go do the Contender Series, and it comes to the third round, and Ray Longo, a New Yorker there from one of the big MMA teams with what's his name there? I forget, but he's screaming at Frankie, "Get the fuck up! Get the fuck up! You got to fight another round!" And the guy went out there and won the third round with basically wrestling. So this guy lost to him, Felipe Franco, and everybody thinks Mario Pinto, his opponent, who's 11-0, is going to wipe the mat with him. So I don't know. Sometimes you got to have a grain of salt. Maybe Franco's learned a lesson from that situation. He does have a lot of wins. He's not that, just from that one loss, he's not really, shouldn't really be judged by that. Yeah. Ray Longo can be very motivating. Anyway, so go with Pinto, I guess. 11-0. You believe that. And then the next one, Anthony Tricoli. I can't believe how many. I think I watched like 5 preview videos today, talking about these predictions, and almost every one of them said Antonio Tricoli should not even be in the UFC right now. He's 12-6. Obviously, hasn't had the best of luck in the organization, and he's going up against a guy named Mantis Kondratavicius, who is 8-1. And usually, when your name ends in vicious, you're pretty vicious. I like him by knockout or money line. By the way, I like Minto by knockout or decision, like we just talked about. Pinto, I mean. Minto. I don't know. I wrote it down, Minto, because his name is Mario. Somehow I put it on paper as Minto. All right. So then, fourth fight of the night, we got heavyweights. Louis Sutherland, 10-4, facing Brando Perisic, who is 5-1. And Perisic is kind of a real tall, lanky guy, but he's not really sloppy with his punches or anything. It's pretty good with him. And Sutherland is really a really heavy set guy, very durable, but most people are on the Perisic side for this one. And moneyline or knockout, I think, on Perisic. Smart. Then this one's probably the one fight where a lot of people are rooting and choosing the underdog here. Shamrock, they call him. 11-2-1, facing Abdul Karim El Sawadi, who is 15-4. You're on the Sawadi side, it's probably going to be a decision win. On the Rock side, you either go with submission or decision. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting fight. And I did notice some of the prediction channels. Rock is the underdog. I think it's like plus 105 or something. But the Rock in this one, they're not really impressed with El Sawadi's style. You know, he's not very entertaining. He's not dynamic. He's just one of those fighters that when he wins, he just grinds it right out. So, Rock's 11-2-1, Sawadi 15-4. I personally think Rock has a shot, but I'm not putting it past Kareem to go win it by decision. Maybe a submission alternate choice bet. Submission for Rock and decision for Sawadi. Be my recommendation. Chanel Dyer in the second fight of the night. She's a really heavy favorite against Ravina Oliveira, who's lost her only 2 UFC fights so far. She's 7-3-1. Dyer 6-1. And she lost, I think it was a split decision in the Contender Series, but she fought so hard they gave her a contract. So Dyer's looking good, probably by decision, but Oliveira's been submitted twice. So submission or knockout, which is also possible, is a factor for the odds. Then the first fight of the night, we got another female fight. So we got 2 of them back to back. Melissa Mullins coming in at 7-2, and Luana Carolina, who's 11-5. And Carolina is the odds-on favorite, but a lot of people are going for Mullins by decision. It's a pretty even fight according to all the prediction channels lumped together. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe just stay away from them. That'd be my suggestion. But yeah, that's a bantamweight fight. And 7-2, Carolina 11-5. It could be one you go over 2.5. Decision. That's about it. I think I covered everything. Got any other tidbits we need to get up before we call it a night?
I do not.
Tom, you still there?
Oh, still here. Not much to add.
That's my dad joke.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll reconnect next week, and hopefully have a lot of good stuff to talk about.
All right.
All right, guys, enjoy the fights.
See ya.
Adios.